I'm a sophomore in college living away from home for the first time. My parents weren't too happy about me working the night shift, especially my mom, who calls to check on me every night. But with rising tuition costs and textbook expenses, I really needed the extra income. Plus, the laundromat was only a 5-minute walk from my dorm, which seemed safe enough. I managed to find a pretty chill job at a 24/7 laundromat near my dorm. The gig was simple: man the counter, clean up as needed, and make sure all the machines were working properly. The place was on a quiet street corner with floor-to-ceiling glass walls looking out onto the street. After 11 p.m., it was usually dead. This was an early October Tuesday night, and the weather was starting to get chilly. My shift started at 10 p.m. There were still a few people inside, a pair of students arguing over a group project while they waited for their clothes to dry, and an old lady reading a newspaper, occasionally glancing at the clock. Everything was perfectly normal. I greeted the guy from the earlier shift, stashed my backpack, and started my usual routine, checking the washers and picking up empty water bottles. By around 11:30, the last of the customers had left. The students were still bickering as they went, and the old lady gave me a nod before shuffling out the door. The previous shift worker had shown me all the emergency exits, panic buttons, and gave me the numbers for campus security and local police. We had a protocol: check in with security every 2 hours, keep doors visible, and never let anyone in after midnight unless they had laundry. Finally, I was alone. This was my favorite part of the shift. I put on my headphones, turned on some lo-fi music, and pulled out my textbooks to study for my upcoming midterms. It was just me in the big empty space, the chill music mixing with the steady hum of the dryers. It was peaceful. Around 1 a.m., as I was starting to doze off over my chemistry formulas, the bell on the door chimed. A man walked in. My first impression was that he looked familiar. About 50, thin, wearing that same heavy coat I'd seen before. His gray hair was a mess. He was carrying a large, black, industrial-sized trash bag. It was a little weird. People usually bring laundry baskets or tote bags, but I figured maybe he didn't have a basket and was just making do. He didn't say anything, just walked silently past my counter and headed to the row of washers in the furthest corner, hidden from my view by the tall dryers. I glanced over, but didn't pay much mind and went back to my books. About 5 minutes later, I realized I hadn't heard a washing machine start up, so I looked up. He wasn't doing laundry. He was just standing there, leaning against the machine, still gripping the trash bag and staring at me. I could only see part of him through the gap between the machines. I took one earbud out. The laundromat was completely silent. Suddenly, the buzz of the fluorescent light seemed deafening. A knot of unease started to form in my stomach. To calm my nerves and to get a better look, I stood up, grabbed the cloth, and started wiping down the glass doors of the nearby dryers. Now I had a clearer view. His gaze wasn't vacant. It was a fixed, unblinking stare that cut right through everything and locked onto me. My palms started to sweat. This terrifying silence stretched on for another 10 minutes. I kept telling myself, maybe he's just tired, or maybe he's deep in thought, but my unease just kept growing. Finally, I worked up the courage, trying to sound friendly, and called out, my voice trembling a little. "Sir, can I help you with anything? Is there a problem with one of the machines?" He didn't answer right away. He slowly turned his head and gave me a smile I will never forget. It wasn't a friendly smile. It stretched his mouth unnaturally wide, showing a set of yellow teeth, but his eyes were empty, lifeless. He spoke in a slow, raspy voice. What time do the doors lock? They don't, I stammered, my stomach tightening. We're open 24/7. He nodded slowly, the smile never leaving his face. Good. That's very good. After that, he abruptly turned, hefted the heavy-looking trash bag, and walked straight to the front door. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. He was probably just a weirdo. I sighed and turned back to the counter. But when he got to the door, he didn't leave. He stopped just outside, turned to face the laundromat, and kept staring at me through the glass. The smile was back, and it was even worse this time. My heart hammered against my ribs. I grabbed my phone from the counter and pretended to call my manager, intentionally speaking loudly. Yeah, I'm still at the laundromat. Everything's fine. But then the worst thing happened. I heard a click, a dry metallic sound. The front door had been locked from the outside. He threaded a bike lock through the 2 door handles, trapping me inside. I dropped my phone and scrambled to the door, pushing and rattling it frantically. Useless. It was locked tight. I was trapped and he was on the other side of that thin sheet of glass, his face inches from mine. He raised a long, thin finger and began to tap softly, rhythmically on the glass, right at my eye level. Tap, tap, tap. Each tap a countdown hammering into my panicked mind. I stumbled back, tripped over a chair, and fell to the floor. With hands I couldn't control, I fumbled for my phone and dialed 911. As I choked out the address to the dispatcher, he stopped tapping. While waiting for the police, I also called my mom with trembling hands. Her voice immediately changed from sleepy to alert when she heard my panicked breathing. "Honey, what's wrong?" she asked. I told her everything through tears, and she kept me on the line while my dad called the police on his phone. Having her voice there helped keep me somewhat calm as that man stood watching me through the glass. He just stood there, slowly shaking his head, as if in disappointment. The smile was gone, replaced by a cold, blank expression. He gave me one last look, then turned and vanished into the darkness. The police tried investigating the security footage from nearby stores, but they couldn't get a clear image of his face. My parents wanted me to quit immediately, but I needed 2 more weeks of work to afford my textbooks. The laundromat owner installed better security cameras and hired a security guard for the night shift, but it was too late. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My parents filed a police report and even contacted a lawyer, but without clear evidence or footage, there wasn't much they could do. The police suggested it might have been someone who had been observing the laundromat's patterns, possibly targeting young workers on the night shift. The owner reviewed employee records from the past few months, thinking it might have been a former worker, but nothing came up. What's worse, 2 other laundromats in nearby towns reported the same incident. A man with a black trash bag watching their night shift workers. I later learned that 3 other college students had quit their night jobs in nearby businesses after similar experiences. The police increased patrols in the area, especially around businesses open 24/7, but they never caught him. The laundromat eventually changed their hours, closing from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. Sometimes I still see older men in gray coats walking past my dorm, and my heart stops for a moment. I've switched to day classes only, and I never do laundry after dark. My mom bought me a personal alarm, and I carry pepper spray now. But the worst part isn't the fear, it's not knowing if he's still out there, watching other students, waiting for another chance. Last week, my friend who works at an all-Medan dinner told me about a customer who came in with a black trash bag asking about their closing time. She quit the next day. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but I sent the police another report anyway. Better safe than sorry.
Last summer, after finishing my first year of college, I moved back in with my parents. Life at home was pretty dull, so to keep myself busy and from getting lazy, I picked up a new habit: waking up at 5 a.m. every day to go for a run. My neighborhood is your typical suburb, quiet and extremely safe. Wide streets, carefully mowed lawns, and warm orange-tinted streetlights. I'd lived there since I was a kid. I knew every curve, every crack in the sidewalk, which houses had dogs that would bark when you ran past. Running at dawn, when the air was still fresh and the whole world seemed to be asleep, gave me an incredible sense of peace. I documented my morning runs on Instagram stories, usually posting aesthetic sunrise shots and my running stats. I had quite a following, around 5,000 people who enjoyed my daily running content and motivational captions. I should mention that my parents were away on a business trip that week, so I was staying alone in our big house. They trusted me since I was a responsible college student, but looking back, maybe I should have stayed with my grandparents instead. For the first 2 weeks, everything was exactly as expected. I enjoyed the silence. But then, on a Monday morning, my routine started to get a little off. As I was jogging down a familiar street, I noticed something lying in the middle of the sidewalk. It was a kid's sneaker, the kind with flashing lights in the heel, but it looked old and dirty. Just one shoe. I thought it was a little weird, figured some kid probably lost it while playing, but I didn't think much of it and kept running. The next morning, I saw the shoe was still in the exact same spot, but this time there was something else next to it. A small plastic doll, the cheap kind you'd win from a claw machine. It was lying on its back, its lifeless, wide-open eyes staring up at the sky. At that point, a feeling of unease started to creep in. Losing a shoe is normal, but having another toy placed neatly next to it felt intentional, like someone was staging a scene. I shivered, picked up my pace, and tried to push it out of my mind. I immediately called my best friend Sarah, who lived a few blocks away. "There's something really weird going on during my morning runs," I told her. She suggested I take photos as evidence and send them to her. I did, and she agreed it was creepy enough to tell my parents about. I also posted about the weird items on my running Instagram, asking if any other local runners had noticed anything similar. The post went viral in our local running community, with several comments from people sharing their own strange experiences. By Wednesday morning, I was already a bit anxious. I told myself that if those things were still there, I'd change my route. And sure enough, they were. The shoe, the doll, and this time a red crayon, snapped in half, lying next to the doll. My heart started beating a little faster. I glanced around. The houses were all still dark and silent. The windows were all black. But I got the feeling that I was being watched. I turned around, deciding to run back and take a different street home. For the rest of my run, I couldn't stop looking over my shoulder. I thought about giving up my morning runs, but I was too stubborn. On Thursday morning, I decided to take that route one last time. If anything else was out of the ordinary, I'd stop for good. As I turned onto that street, I saw a figure in the distance. They were standing right next to that bizarre collection of items, under the dim glow of a streetlight. I couldn't make out a face or clothes, just a tall, thin silhouette, standing perfectly still. My heart dropped into my stomach. I stopped, standing about 50 yards away, unsure of what to do. Keep going, or turn and run. It was like they could sense I was there. They slowly lifted their head, and I froze in horror. Under the streetlight, I could make out their face. It was a man, probably in his 40s, wearing what looked like a maintenance worker's uniform. But what terrified me most was his expression, a wide, unnatural smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was holding something else in his other hand. It looked like another child's toy. Then he spoke, his voice eerily calm. "I've been waiting for you. You're always so punctual." My phone was in my pocket, but my hands were shaking too much to reach for it. I didn't need another second to think. I spun around and ran like my life depended on it. I didn't dare look back, just kept sprinting for home, the sound of my own ragged breaths filling my ears. When I got to my front door, I rushed inside, slammed the bolt shut, and leaned my back against the door, gasping for air. I immediately called 911 with trembling hands. The dispatcher kept me on the line while police were dispatched. While waiting for the police, I checked my phone's location history in Google Maps. To my horror, I discovered that someone had accessed my account from an unknown device at 3 a.m. that morning. They had been tracking my exact running route for the past week. I could hear movement outside my windows, like someone circling the house. The police arrived within minutes, their sirens piercing the dawn silence. They found fresh footprints in our garden and, more disturbingly, photos of me running taken from various hiding spots along my route scattered near our mailbox. The police investigation revealed something even more chilling. 3 other runners in nearby neighborhoods had reported similar incidents, toys left on their routes, being watched, hearing whistling, but they'd all been too scared to report it initially. Security cameras from a house 2 streets over caught footage of the man changing into different uniforms, sometimes a maintenance worker, sometimes a delivery person. They never caught him, but they believed he was stalking multiple people in the area. What made it even more disturbing was that the police found the man's own Instagram account. He had been posing as a local running coach, building a following of over 10,000 runners in the area. He would comment on their posts, give training advice, and slowly learn their routines. Several women came forward saying they had even met him for coaching sessions that left them feeling uncomfortable. I later learned from a detective that this type of predator often tests their victims' routines before escalating to more dangerous behavior. My decision to stop running might have saved my life. They installed extra security cameras in our neighborhood after that, and for months, police cars patrolled the area during early morning hours. These days, I still run, but I've turned my experience into something positive. I started a YouTube channel and Instagram page called Runner Safety Network, where I share safety tips and verify legitimate running coaches. The community has grown to over 100,000 members, and we've helped identify several other predators using similar tactics in running communities across the country. But sometimes, when I'm scrolling through running hashtags late at night, I'll spot a profile that seems too perfect, a coach with professional photos but no real credentials, leaving encouraging comments on runners' early morning route posts. And I wonder if he's still out there, just using a different name, different toys, different tactics, waiting for the next runner who trusts too easily.